home, or I think of Yadkin County as home. My mother's family's from Courtney, Revises, and I think when I first ran in 2002, one of my relatives put an ad in a newspaper and lists my family tree of being a Revis, and at the bottom it said vote for your cousin. So it is like coming home to family, because when I walked up, I was talking to Brady Wooten, and Richard Miller was here. Richard said, "You put on some weight." And I said, "Well, yeah, when I first ran, that was about 30 pounds ago, so it's a lot like coming home getting kind of criticized for putting on weight. But since I served here, I've gotten married and have a little girl, 16 months old. And, when I ran, people asked me, not having a family and talking about family values. I said, well, one family value, if I get married, and especially if I have kids, I'm not going to run for office again. And it's better for me to be at home than to be down in Raleigh." And of course, when I first got married, my family probably told my wife it's probably a good thing that I was in Raleigh, so she wouldn't kill me if I was there every day. But secondly, when I found out we were expecting my daughter, and I said, well, okay. I said, that's fine with me. I'll get to come home and not serve in Raleigh. But a few weeks went by, and I was trying to make sure we get a good conservative candidate to replace me. My wife came up to me and said, "We want you back in Raleigh because we know how important it is." And I was like, well, that means a lot. So I, try to get home as much as I can now. But Becky stole my speech just a while ago. Thank you, Becky. I had it all written down. I normally don't write down all the things we accomplished through our state budget, but Becky pretty much covered it. But what I'll cover today, or right now, is some of the more social issues that we're working on down in Raleigh. Now, our first thing on our agenda when we went down to Raleigh this year was the budget. And I sit on Appropriations Committee of General Government, which is really downtown Raleigh. You have the Department of Revenue, Secretary of State, Department of the Treasurer, the Governor's Office, Lieutenant Governor. Well, the Governor was a little upset because we cut a lot of positions out of her office. We cut the revenue, cut a lot of other areas. People will say, well, you cut a lot of jobs. I said, no, we didn't cut jobs. We cut positions. Because there's actually, when you have a job, you've got a person there, but when you have just a position, there's nobody there. We cut thousands and thousands of vacant positions in state government. Not only were there vacant positions, there were vacant departments. Enron was a national scandal because of that. Well, I told at the subcommittee and told the heads of all the departments, you ain't got nothing on Enron. You're doing the exact same thing they did. Now, I didn't own any personal stock in Enron, but I do in the state of North Carolina, and I am highly ticked off that this went on for year after year after year, all these vacant positions. And I said, well, Senator Brock, we use these vacant positions to pay for other things. I said, how are we to know where the money is going and what it's needed for if you're lying from the very beginning on your budget? Tell us where our money's going. And one of the secretaries came up to me, secretary of a department came up and said, well, we're going to have trouble paying our power bill. I was like, well, that's what happens when you don't own up to what's been happening all these years. But saying all these vacant positions, like, oh, we'll fire all these people. Nobody ever lost a job. It was all these vacant positions. Well, Becky, like I said, she pretty much went over a lot of things that we've done already so far in the year. In fact, one of the lobbyists came up to me after about the second week and said, you Republicans have treated the first 2 weeks of session like the last 2 weeks. Y'all are moving like this, right and left. Y'all are not stopping. And I said, we don't plan on letting up. We're going to work. We're going to keep on going. We're not going to mess around. We're going to get to the people's business. And I've got a little girl and a wife I want to go home and see. So we're going to get out of town real early. And we're projected to get out of town next week, the earliest ever. We were the earliest to get the budget completed. It's balanced. We're spending less than $1 billion than we did last year. We cut departments, we cut taxes, we cut government spending, And we're putting back $3.3 billion back into your pockets over 2 years. $3.3 billion better spent in your pockets than it is in government's pockets. And we took care, and we're working on almost every financial issue we have to. Issues concerning the Second Amendment. You know, in North Carolina before, it was your position that you had the duty, this is what was in the law, it was your duty, it was your right to flee. It was your job to run away instead of stand your ground or protect what you've got. Well, we're working on it now. I co-authored the original document for the Castle Doctrine. Well, that's going to go through this year, and we're going to have the duty where your Second Amendment right and just the right to protect yourself, your family, your possessions is going to be law. So that's coming through. And two bills that we just passed, and one that will pass here shortly. Number one was unborn victims of violence. North Carolina was one of the few states that didn't have a law that if a pregnant lady was killed and she was knowingly pregnant, in North Carolina it would only count as one death. One death. And you think about what happened down at Camp Lejeune when that one soldier killed the other soldier who was carrying the baby. He was only going to be on trial for one death, not two. Well, the Unborn Victims of Violence bill will pass this year, and that means that it will count as two deaths instead of one. Yeah.